the program staff for LifeSci here. Rich, Sharon, Sally, Evan, and myself. Shout out to them. So the LifeSci NYC Internship program is a part of the city's initiative to grow the life science industry. The New York City Economic Development Corporation, otherwise known as the NYCEDC, is a 10-year, $1 billion initiative to grow the life science industry in New York. Our program offers paid internships and part-time and full-time job opportunities for both undergraduate and graduate students in either science track or business management track during the academic year and the summer, which also includes computer science and data. To date, we've placed nearly 600 college and graduate students into paid internships into 150 different life science companies and organizations in New York City. Currently, we have over 50 open career-focused internships and jobs for this current cycle, with more coming at this time. This is a single, so these are the three career panelists that we have, and Alyssa, Aminor, and Carlos. We can start off by them introducing them. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to hear more about your experiences and your journeys in this field.
I guess Alisa can go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's good to see so many of you here. So I'm Alyssa, and I am currently a bioinformatics scientist at a company called Envisagenics. We're located in New York City, actually in Long Island City in Queens. We just opened up a new office there. And to give you a little bit of my background and how I got to my position today, I did my undergraduate at the University of Notre Dame out in Indiana. So it was in the Midwest for 4 years, and I studied science business, which was basically a business minor and a biology major. It was actually a great major to kind of get exposure to those basic fundamentals of business, but really study the biology that I loved. And straight from undergrad, I decided that I still love science, still loved research. I had some research experience in high school and during undergrad, so I decided to get my PhD. I went to grad school at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine up in the Bronx, so back to New York City, and spent 6 years getting my PhD there in technically biomedical sciences. My specific thesis was in computational and molecular biology. I studied transcription and splicing, and I developed a new method to study these things and also developed a new analysis pipeline to analyze the data that I was producing. So really got my hands in a lot of different things there. And that's actually where my interest and experience in computational biology started. When I went to grad school, I had no experience in these. I had not taken formal classes. So all of you in computer science classes definitely have a leg up on me. But I was able to, with my mentor, really learn on the fly. And because my project required it, I learned how to do computational analysis and data analysis. I learned how to code in Python. And it really changed the course of my career because now I'm in a fully computational position in biotech. So I graduated with my PhD in 2020, actually March of 2020. It was an exciting time. I was my school's first virtual thesis defense, but we made it work. And I was able to start at my company in the beginning of 2021. I started as a bioinformatics scientist, and I've really loved my position so far. I do a lot of data analysis. I build pipelines for our machine learning algorithms. I've actually been putting together a manuscript. So I do a lot of different things, mostly focused on studying the biology of splicing and how we can use RNA therapeutics to target splicing in a host of different diseases. So that's kind of my summary of my career path in a nutshell, and I'm excited to answer all of any questions you have today.
That's amazing. Very interesting experiences for sure. Carlos, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos Tavares, and former student from, I went to Hostels Community College. I know there's someone from Hostels here to pursue an associate's degree in chemical engineering. So I graduated in 2015 and then transferred to City College, where I continue the bachelor's in chemical engineering. Graduated in 2018 and then continue pursuing a master's degree in data science, and it's called Data Science in Engineering. I graduated in 2020, June 2020 exactly. And yeah, I started working at Komodo Health in December 2020. So something that I have to mention is that I was an intern in summer 2019, thanks to LifeSci. I interned at 1Tree Biotech. And yeah, he opened many doors for me. Like even the following semesters, I was able to grab positions within the school. Like after my internship, I work as a part-time data scientist for NOACRES. And later I work as a data science instructor for CUNY Tech Prep. That was in my last semester. So in my current position, I work as a data engineer, Komodo Health. And what we do is that we create the history of objects, basically. So objects can be like a hospital, patients, doctors, and like aggregate the data from many sources, build scalable pipelines, and shift the results to downstream products. Why I got interested into data science, I would say that when I was pursuing the undergrad, I noticed that I was lacking computing skills, and yeah, wanted to learn. So yeah, that's how I got into the data. Well, my first baby steps into the data industry. Any questions?
We'll get to a lot more questions later on.
Right. Cool.
Definitely want to hear your experience. It's very interesting, the transition. And we'd like to introduce our final panelist, Aminor.
Yeah, hi everyone. I haven't spoken in front of people like this in a long time. So, hey Sharon, nice to see you again. I'm sorry if it's been I've mainly been working in a different environment since the last time I saw you guys. So yeah, it's a little weird talking to so many people again. But yeah, so I'm Aminor. I graduated from Hunter College. There's a lot of people from Hunter College. I got both my bachelor's and my master's degree from there. I was on an entirely different path before going to where I was. And I met Sharon in 2018 when I finished my master's, and I joined as an intern for a biotech company. So at the time, I was like a research assistant for a startup called Lucerna. We created like RNA aptamers that sort of work like how GFP works. So it has a specific structure that only binds when another protein is visible, and it's a dye that we would also manufacture. So it's like fish, if you know what fish is, like fluorescence immunohistochemistry. It was like that. It would bind to a target, except ours was way more stable, didn't bleach. Yeah, so I joined that startup as an intern. I did my LifeSci internship program there that summer, and then right after I was hired as a full-time R&D associate. So I worked there for a couple of years, and yeah, again, my track was entirely different. So the last time I did a career panel for LifeSci, I actually was going to start med school, and this was in 2020, and I was going to start in the summer. So 2020 is also the year COVID happened, and to be honest with you, my path was a little shaky already. I wasn't entirely committed. Like, you know, I wanted to do an MD PhD, and I got rejected from an MD PhD, and I was just going to do a regular MD, which is fine, but the debt wasn't smiling at me, and I had to like figure out all these loans, and I was just really not having a good time. But I was still excited to start med school. I'm not saying anything bad about med school, but when COVID happened, we all sort of had to shelter, and it sort of, it became this like huge event that like, people haven't experienced in like over 100 years. So during that time, the area in which I live in right now, we were 150% over the average, the national average for COVID cases. It was a very like serious time. I mean, thankfully I had my job and we were able to work from home during that time, but it sort of changed my perspectives on what I really wanted from life and from my career. Like I love helping people, but I kind of realized that there's a lot I could do from a computer screen. I've always been a programmer since I was young. I did programming in high school. I did programming while I was at Hunter, also in my master's. I was going to double major in computer science, but it just became too much, so I never did that. But I have taken several programming classes while I was there. And then at Lucerna, despite working in the wet lab, I did work on a couple of projects that involved heavy programming. One of them was an ML project that we developed. So we had, using our aptamers, we had these assays for drug discovery. And you have high specificity and high selectivity, but it's hard to get both. So we created an ML algorithm that or platform that would help you get the best of both. So we worked with MSK at the time and a bunch of other companies. So I did a bunch of heavy programming there. And then once COVID really, like during that lockdown, I did so much programming that I really asked myself, it's like, hey, do I really want to do medicine? I mean, I'm so much happier doing this. Why not just pivot? So I made the very hard decision to give up on basically the last 6 years of my life. All that hard work, I just threw it out the window and I said, yeah, I'm going to pivot my career, which was a very, very scary decision at the time, but it's something that I don't regret at all today. So currently I am a software engineer at MSK. I've been here for about 2 years. I still work largely on a lot of the stuff that I worked on before, except I am now on the developer side. So like I said, we created assays at Lucerna, and at MSK, we just have other people developing these assays, and I create data pipelines and also UIs where computational biologists can come in, look at that data. They're notified when that data is available. We work on automation. So we make a lot of that like old workflow that I was familiar with when I was an R&D associate. We just help make that workflow a lot simpler. So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now is stuff that I wish I had done while I was at Lucerna. Honestly, I talk to my old boss about this all the time, and she has regrets, as do I. She's like, yeah, this would have been a great product for our company if only we knew you could have made this back then. But that's just how it works, I guess. But yeah, I'm a software engineer at MSK now. It's a great company. I'm happy with my team, happy with my life. So yeah, when we have questions, I'll be happy to answer any of them.
That's great. Very interesting pivoting from pre-med, med school, MD, PhD to more software engineering. Very, very interesting. So I'll get started with some questions. So since most of you have transitioned from basic sciences and basic science engineering to more data science, computer science, what courses or experience did you find most helpful in preparing you for your current career? And what skills did you use like that?
Yeah, I can answer that. I can start off with that answer, and then you guys can join in if you have anything to add. So in terms of courses, I'm coming from a software engineer perspective. It's going to be very different if you're a data scientist, and especially different if you're a computational biologist. From a software engineer's perspective, the work we do is very, it's non-specific. So if you work at a bank or a startup, Facebook, it's really no different from what I do at my company. At the end of the day, we're just creating either pipelines. So you have your architecture that the users don't see, that does all the computation and transformation of the data, and it goes to different people. And then you have the user side, which is the front end, And that's what you see when you access a portal. So if a computational biologist comes in and sees the data available on a website, it's not any different from logging onto Facebook and seeing some messages from your friends. It's largely the same. So I wouldn't say my coursework is necessarily required, but it's definitely helpful depending on where you go. So if you have a position like mine, it's not necessary for you to have taken any biology courses or have history in genomics, but it's definitely helpful. So with my team, and a team is like a very small unit in a department inside the larger hospital. My team just consists of 3 people at the time. We're trying to change that, but it's just me and 2 other people. So we have to sort of handle a lot of stuff, and we build a lot of our pipelines ourselves. So we don't have other people coming in telling us that, hey, this is what they need, and this is how you should build it. And that's sort of a requirement if you want to be a software engineer. One of the biggest things about our jobs is you need to do what's called requirement gathering. So you need to figure out what your consumers are using, and you need to figure out how they're using it, where they're using it wrong, and how you can improve that process. So having a biology background is definitely good, because if you know what the users are going to be doing, you know what you need to build. So sort of use that background to come up solve problems before they become bigger problems. I've been able to bring stuff to people, and that sort of helped our product really grow and become essential in the hospital. But I wouldn't really say any of the coursework's mandatory. Even the programming. I mean, programming, I guess if you're looking at coursework, I wouldn't say a general programming course is necessarily required, especially in college. A lot of your computer science majors, you'll know that your first classes in CS are like very low level. It's like binary, and then like at most you'll do like C++ or something, or Java. And in the modern tech field, you really, unless you're doing very specific things, you won't be using a lot of those languages. So yeah, I would say any coursework, really think about what you want in your career and sort of hone in on that. So I wouldn't say any coursework's mandatory, but any class that you take is an opportunity for you to grow as a character, as a person. So wherever you go, if you go to a bank and you took one like finance class in college, you can use that. You sort of have a leg up. Same thing with biology, same thing with history. It really doesn't matter where you go. You can sort of apply all your skills. Like I have a friend who like hated writing, but now he's at Scholastic, and I don't know, there's a lot of folds that sort of come in. So yeah, I would say think about what you want to do and just what classes you have taken, what class you yourself are interested in, and then just incorporate them into your career.
Mm-hmm. Alyssa, what courses and experiences kind of helped you also with the transition?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with everything that was just said. I think the most important point that I was also going to make is find what you're interested in. The basics of programming and coding will come. You can especially when you're working on an individual project, or you have to solve a problem, you'll figure out how to do the coding. And obviously having that background in all your different languages is important. But I think finding what you're really interested in and having that background knowledge is important. So like you said, if you're interested in genomics, you're interested in biology, you're interested in finance, whatever, have those kind of background informational courses, I think are really important. Especially for a field like mine, which is more like computational biology, bioinformatics focused, less engineering. We do look for people that have that kind of domain knowledge, we call it. So, when we're hiring someone, no, you don't need to be an expert in RNA splicing, but having a background in genomics or having worked with RNA-seq data is important, right? Because that's the type of data that we're working with every day. So if there's a type of data or a field that you're particularly interested in, I would say definitely courses in that type of thing are important. And the other thing I want to highlight is, you said courses or experiences, and I tend to, if I'm looking at a candidate or looking at someone for an internship or something like that, I tend to value experiences a little bit more than courses. Courses are extremely important. You obviously learn a lot through those courses. That gives you the foundation to get experiences. But I find if you've had independent research experience or experience at a company or with a, professor, where you have to actually take a problem and solve it yourself, tends to be a lot more valuable, in my opinion, than, a course in a class where they kind of hand you data and say, figure out X, Y, and Z, and they already know the answer. I think that ability to problem solve and to, kind of take data and look at it and come up with meaningful results from that data is a really important skill. So anywhere where you can get that type of experience, I think would be really valuable. But yeah, agree. Do what you're interested in, learn more about what you're interested in, and continue down that path.
That's some great advice.
Sorry, I do want to add one quick thing based on some of these questions that are coming in. I think one thing that I did not include when I was giving my talk is you should look into the positions that you want and what the requirements are. Like if you're a software engineer, there are no requirements. You could be an artist and be a software engineer. There's really no requirements. But some of the more technical ones, like I see one for bioinformatics. I am not familiar with I'm not familiar with the interview process with getting into bioinformatics, but I do know that some fields have harder requirements. Software engineering, again, no requirements, but others may require you to get like a specific degree or have a master's degree. That's something you want to either research or you want to reach out to companies now that you're interested in and see what the requirements are, so that you can then tailor your college experience to fit those requirements.
Carlos, do you have anything to add about?
I do. Well, I'll say I agree, because based on what they said, like this is something that is hands-on. Like you have to, if you don't use the hands, and it's about solving problems. But in my case, I didn't have any computer science background. So when I was pursuing the master's, one course that really helped me to understand more about data engineering was distributed systems, and like it paved the ground to understand more about databases and how to make system scalable. Machine learning as well, of course. You need to know machine learning if you want to be a data engineer or data scientist. But besides that, it is mostly about what you do, what you have solved, what you can show off to people. If you don't have, like, my advice is that if you don't have like any research experience or internship, start working on your own and create a project. That is something that that make you shine. That's all.
That's great. Thank you guys for your perspective. That's very helpful. One question I want to ask all of you is, what makes you proud about working in your industry and the impact of your work? Since you're interfacing computer science and data and software engineering into your work, into the life science industry.
Can I go first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Carlos.
So since I started actually also the associate's degree, I wanted to work in healthcare. So I wanted to learn how medicine was made and why we have diseases. So like, given the fact that I work in healthcare, it's fulfilling, like going to bed every single day, knowing that the work that I'm doing is going to have a positive effect on people. So it makes me, brings joy to my life. It's not a job. It's not only about the money. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
That's great. Alyssa, Amanor, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I can jump in. I think, I definitely agree that working in the, medical adjacent, at least for me, life sciences industry is, fulfilling at the base level of being able to, hopefully bring some sort of new treatments or therapies to, different disease areas. But I think, in particular about the bioinformatics, computational biology, using data for this. I think being able to be on this side of things and take all of this data in and bring out new insights from this data is particularly interesting, because I think, at least for the past, however many years it's been, the production of data has really exceeded our ability to analyze it and get information out of it. So being able to take all of this data that's coming in and actually make insights from it, and be able to take, RNA-seq data or single cell data or whatever it is, and pull out new genes that can be targets for therapy, or new biomarkers that can tell us which patients are, more susceptible to one therapy versus another, or just all of these different insights that we can take all of this data and actually make meaningful results from, and meaningful potential treatments from, I think is extremely gratifying. And I think also, in my particular case at our company, we're looking at what's called RNA splicing, which is basically one of the first steps between DNA and producing RNA, which produces protein. And because we're able to mine this data, we're actually able to kind of unlock an entirely new area of therapeutics. And, all of these different modalities can impact RNA splicing. And this is a field that really hasn't been used as much for different therapeutics. So because we're able to computationally now analyze all of this data, we can, like I said, unlock this kind of understudied new area for new therapeutics. And I think that's super exciting. So that's what I'll say about that. Being able to dig into data and find new things that, from all this data that's been sitting there for however many years, we can dig in and still find new and exciting things, which is amazing.
That's amazing. Hopefully find some good discoveries. The question I want to ask is, how do you see your particular field changing in the next 5 to 10 years, and how to prepare for those changes and opportunities in your field?
I think that's going to be different for all of us, because we, despite being in tech and biology, we're like pretty diverse. If you're a software engineer, I guess, it's a field that changes like overnight. There's new technologies coming in like right now as we speak. And, you sometimes have to adapt to those. Like stuff that we wrote 5 years ago is not being used anymore. If you want to sort of, as I mentioned before, it's about what you bring to you, not necessarily, there's no like hard requirement on like, hey, this is what you need 5 years from now. If you don't have it, you're falling off. It's sort of what you can bring with you. So, even if there's like an entirely new language or something, it doesn't matter. You know the general concepts of programming, and you can apply that to anything. My field in particular, in software engineering, I would say we're probably going to have new libraries, plenty of new technologies to work with. You guys all know about AI and what's that doing. We're already thinking about using AI in our hospital, and a lot of things we've been using AI for years. So that doesn't mean you necessarily need to like pick some focus your studies on AI development, but that's probably going to be a popular field 5 years from now. I think a lot of health tech is going to, you're going to see a lot more health tech. After COVID, a lot of laws and a lot of accessibilities have changed for data. So, HIPAA was like brutal before, and, understandably why. You were very restricted with hospital data before, and that limited development. But a lot of those rules are changing, and you're going to see health tech really transform in the next 5 years, maybe 10. But yeah, you're going to see that a lot.
Alyssa, Carlos, anything to add?
Yeah, I think, like you said, we're all in such different fields that, things will change differently. But I think one of the big things for computational biology, at least, is that new techniques are coming out every day to study cells in different ways. And they're all producing data differently. So, for the past 10, 15 years, we've been using short read RNA-seq. Everyone has, their whole host of programs that can analyze that. And now long read RNA-seq is coming out, and it's becoming much better. And we're like, oh no, we don't know how to analyze this. It's similar data, but we still need, to update our way of looking at that data. So new techniques are always coming out. So being able to adapt to those new types of data and integrate them into the information we already have, I think is going to be important. I think consistency is going to be really important. We've had this like data boom, and we've had this, everyone's diving in and analyzing all of this data, but there could always be more consistency across those analyses. So being able to, not miss things or not overstate things because of lack of consistency, I think will be important. And I agree that, AI is going to be, really important. That's something that our company has been really focused on, is using AI to develop new algorithms to analyze our data in more efficient ways, to pull out new, insights from our data. So I think that's also going to be obviously very important in the next 5 to 10 years.
That's great. And Carlos, from a data science, health data analytics type perspective, how do you think the field will change, and how would you advise someone to prepare for those changes?
I mean, how to prepare is how it's very hard to tell, because we have incredible changes. Like, I mean, even starting in 2020, COVID, like how the vaccine was so rapidly developed thanks to AI. Also, even Chat GPT I was reading an article, forgot the name of the article, where it can be used also in biotech, like to improve. It has so many uses, like even to improve the coding. If you want to make a dashboard, it's hard to tell how to prepare. Just stay on top and read blogs, what's out in the market, and what is new in open source.
We could field some questions from the audience. If you guys have any, if anyone has any questions that they want to ask the panelists, please type it into the chat, and we'll try to get to it during this session. So Marcus asks, what kind of programming language do you mainly use for your work?
Okay, that applies to all three of us. Do you mean me in particular, or like
to everyone? Since you just work in, all three of you work in very different spheres, to see the different opportunities.
Okay, so as a software engineer, it'll depend on where you work. The stack that we use is obviously JavaScript. There's no way around it. You have to use that if you're going to work on the front end. And on the back end, we use a combination of Python and Java. My team mainly uses Python. But the lower you go, which is like the lab side, so we have what we do is we automate a lot of NGS data, right? Python is great, but it is not powerful enough to do something like that. So for that, we use Java. If you are interested, I answered this question, but I accidentally sent it to someone as a direct message. Someone asked if they should learn JavaScript as their first language. I would say JavaScript is great. If you're going to work on the front end, you should definitely learn JavaScript because that's your only option. But it's a very weird language to start. It does not work like a lot of the other languages. It's a very confusing language. If you have no experience and you're just trying to start coding, I'd say Python is probably the best place to start. That's the easiest to learn, in my opinion. I mean, it still has its quirks, but it's the most straightforward and it's really strong. And a lot of companies are using it. A lot of companies have switched to just using Python instead of whatever they're using 5 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Python is kind of, if you're gonna pick something, that's the one to pick. I almost exclusively code in Python. We do have several analysts at our company that code in R. R is really good for data visualization, although Python is catching up. I tend to avoid R whenever possible, so I'm getting better at it in Python. But those are really the two languages that we use.
Right. So I mostly use Python. In my team, we use Snowflake as the database engine. So that implies using SQL as well. So yeah, guys, practice SQL and Python for the backend, of course.
Yeah, those were great answers. I'm guessing everyone is here is studying or thinking about studying these sort of languages. So that's great to hear what's being currently used in the industry. Megan asks, when learning programming languages, what was one of the most difficult things you experienced, and how did you overcome it?
Okay. It's not, wait, do you mean like specifically when you're starting learning a language, or like when you're looking for a job in programming?
Either or.
Okay, so when I first started programming, I've been programming for a long time, so I'm not the best person to answer this question. If you want to work on the front end, again, JavaScript is very weird. I'm going to post a link. JavaScript is the weirdest language to start in. I promise you, it's not the hardest, but it's the weirdest. So yeah, learning that in the beginning was definitely weird, and I struggled with that. And I guess you overcome it with the only way to overcome it, just like anything else. You just practice, you keep doing it, and then you learn it. And then you're an expert, and then you teach the next person. That's how the pipeline works. If you're looking for a job, and I'm seeing a lot of comments about talking about the layoffs and is it hard to get a software engineer job? It is, but it's also not. I don't want to say that it's easy. I have plenty of friends right now who are looking for jobs, and it can take some time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. You're not going to just apply to your first job and get it right away. You might. I know someone who has. But the main thing that's really going to get you a job in a software engineering field is how well you do with data structures and algorithms. That's unfortunately the stereotype in the tech field. If you're a software engineer, nothing matters. You could be the smartest person in the universe. You could build, I don't know, anything in 20 minutes. But if you can't do data structures and algorithms questions, you're not getting that job. That's 100% of our interviews. You go in, they do a behavioral interview to make sure you're sociable and you can work with others. But then it's the coding interview. There are books written about it, there are movies made about it. The Google coding interview. Everyone does those now. They're really annoying questions. You're never going to use. You might use them, but most likely you're not going to use them in the workplace. They're very specific, very hard. So I would just do that. Like if you're looking for a job as a software engineer, just focus. That should be like 70% of your time. Just brushing up on doing those questions. There are websites like LeetCode, which is what most of us use. It's like it's a website. You just do questions. There's something called Pramp, which randomly pairs you up with someone who's also in your position looking for a job, and you interview each other. HackerRank is also good. Code Wars is good. That's where I actually started. You can also make a study group. So I had a study group with a bunch of other people, and we met every day, and we did 2 questions a day. One where I would ask a question. You get paired with someone. One where I'd ask a question. One where they would ask a question. We did that for a long time. We did that for like 4 or 5 until we got a job. So like 4 or 5 months, and we did that pretty rigorously. And I'd say that helped us quite a bit. And we all got pretty good jobs. I mean, we all had pretty good offers. We have a couple that are working in FANG right now. So yeah, that's really it. Just practice. There's no like cheat code. There's no like, oh, buy this book, get this product. Just practice. That's the positive and the negative. There's no like, you're not going to get anything unexpected in the software engineering field, or you're not going to get something that's like out of the blue. But what you do get is difficult. So just study that. I think you're on mute. Yeah, you're on mute.
Alyssa and Carlos, your thoughts on this?
Well, like for me, basically I was teaching myself how to code, and at the same time data structures and algorithms. It was kind of hard at the beginning, but the more you practice, the better you get. And yeah, just code. Like one thing that helped me to prepare for interviews, for coding interviews, is that I basically divided the difficulty of the questions. Like mostly jobs have like at least 2 technical interviews. So for the first technical interview, I did easy and medium problems. And for the final technical interview, I did from medium to difficult problems. So that way you don't get overwhelmed. And yeah, my strategy is that I first started with HackerRank. I think the problems in HackerRank are easier than the ones in LeetCode, and then move to LeetCode. And yeah, you can find companies and get random problems and practice as much as you can.
That's great. Any any question open up to the panelists? Any entry level advice for a job, like to get a job at the entry level? Like, how did you get your first job? How was that interview process like? And when you transitioned from school to your work, like how was that as well?
Can I take this one?
Yes.
All right, so I would say technical skills are great, but soft skills add up as well. And one thing that I did, I read a book called How to Sell Yourself in any interview. And it's mostly about what you can do for the person, what problems they have, and how you can solve those problems. So you need to do your homework. You need to know, I would say, where the interviewer, to which school the interviewer went, the job position, and so that way you can. It helps you to build rapport with the person. Like even like one example that I got in my my last round at Komodo Health, the VP was Russian, so he asked me a question, and like what kind of hobbies do I have? And my answer was I like to watch historical movies, and he asked for the name of one, and there's this movie called Enemy at the Gates, which takes place in Russia. It's a pretty good movie, but he allowed me to create that connection, that empathy in some sense, and it helps. It does help. Yeah.
That's great. That's some great advice. Another question, what qualifications should someone have if they're going into data analytics? Any sort of certifications, test or programs that that they should know, and that could be put broadly for either bioinformatics or software engineering in terms of that.
Sorry, what was the question again? I was writing something.
Certain types of qualifications, certifications that you would need for your specific field, things that you've gotten that maybe made you stand out or made you competitive for your job or your industry.
Getting a bachelor's in computer science would definitely help. There are also boot camps that are great if you're going to pivot your career. They do more than enough in teaching you what you need. I also have friends who graduated from college with a bachelor's in computer science, and then they did a boot camp. Just because if you learn CS in college, you're again like not doing a lot of languages. You're doing more low-level languages like C++ or Java. And that just low level doesn't mean easy. It just means that that's like what the machine's using. So you might not be using those. So getting experience with those languages, you don't have to go to boot camp. You could get a certification from just about anywhere. But having a college degree definitely helps. I don't know if you need a master's for computer science. I would say you don't. But if you don't have a college degree, I think it's a little bit harder because you might be rejected by a machine. And that's the hard part. So yeah, I mean, if you have a college degree, I'd say you're set.
In terms of data science and bioinformatics, are there any sort of particulars?
I mean, I think it's pretty similar to what you just said. I think I was especially going to comment on the whole like getting rejected by a machine, or even just like getting rejected by people that are just reading one page about you, right? Like if you're not highlighting those keywords of what the job description is looking for, you might get passed over, you know, inadvertently. So I think having, you know, whether it's a certification or a boot camp or a degree or a, you know, experience where you can say, I used Python to do X, Y, and Z, and I, you know, got this paper or whatever. I think just being able to like highlight those on your resume or a cover letter is really important. And if you can do that through a certification or a boot camp or something like that, I think that's great. You know, I don't put any different you know, weight to whether you learn Python in a boot camp versus a class versus, you know, during your master's. You know, I don't think that that's meaningfully different. But I think, you know, kind of on that topic, and on the topic of applying to jobs too, most jobs, at least in my field, will list out the different requirements or, you know, soft requirements that they want you to have for a particular job. So experience with Python, experience with RNA-seq data, experience with whatever. So being able to tailor your resume to those particular requirements can be really helpful. So if I'm looking through your resume and you really highlighted that you've worked with a ton of RNA-seq data, that's going to be a great green flag for me, right? But if you have, and you only kind of mentioned it once, then maybe I'm like, oh, maybe they don't have as much experience with this, right? So I think really like tailoring your resume and your, you know, what you're highlighting on your resume to the company can be really beneficial.
One question to ask is, you know, sometimes getting that first internship might be a bit difficult, and you know, but they're very competitive to get some of them, especially on the industry side. Did any of you do any sort of side projects or extracurricular activities or clubs during college or after college that, you know, helped you, you know, in your current industry to, you know, land that first job or that first internship? Especially since some of you have, almost all of you have transitioned from a different field into data science and computer and software engineering.
I'm not sure if this maybe counts as an extracurricular, but one thing I did want to say earlier, which I do think kind of speaks to this as well, is networking and talking to more people will, you know, kind of get you that experience, or they'll even tell you like what experience they're looking for. So I think that can be a really good way to, you know, not only get a job after college, but get an internship, right? Or get you know, that first experience or that first informational interview. So networking at conferences or boot camps or anything like that can be really helpful. And I think in terms of extracurriculars, you know, if you're having trouble getting that independent experience, I think it was mentioned earlier, I think maybe Carlos mentioned it, you know, finding a project you're interested in and just kind of diving in and doing your own independent research on it can be that kind of extra boost you need to, you know, show, hey, I'm interested in this. I can independently research something. I think that's, you know, that's huge.
Amador and Carlos, you have anything to add?
No, man, that was well said.
Yeah, I'd agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. And for those that don't have a computer science background, that exploring, you know, computer science or data science as an option, what are your sort of suggestions or ways for them to, you know, start preparing? You know, maybe they're underclassmen, maybe they're close to graduating, like in terms of that.
I mean, maybe I can start because I didn't have a computer science background at all pre-PhD. And I think we've kind of said it over and over again, but practicing and trying it out and solving a problem with, you know, with bioinformatics, you know, is really the way to learn it and the way to find out if you like it and the way to find out if you're good at it. You know, I think, and whether that's at a boot camp or at a extracurricular class or at an internship or an independent research, you know, just doing it and doing it a lot and doing it in different approaches, right? So don't just do one project and say, okay, great, done, I like it, right? Try a couple different projects, try a couple different fields, but you kind of just have to practice and do it a lot, and and get better at it. That's unfortunately, there's no secret to it. You just have to do it.
We're running out of time. I guess one last question I wanted to ask all of you is, what's your favorite part of your job? What do you look forward most, in terms of working, going to the office or work from home, opening up your work laptop and working? What are your favorite aspects of your job, most favorite aspects of your job?
I can start with this one, but I think we should all answer. Yeah, in my case, the reason I picked this company over like all of my other offers is it's fully remote, and that's been life-changing. I mean, Sharon knows this. I used to commute 2 hours to my last job every day, and then 2 hours back. So I was losing 4 hours of my life every single day. And yeah, I don't know how I did that. I really don't know how I did that. Now I wake up and then I walk not even 5 feet, like 2 feet to my office, which is nice. Yeah, I get to do a lot of extracurriculars now that I would not even imagine back then. I feel like I'm younger now than I was back then because I have so much more time. So yeah, remote opportunities are definitely great. So the other thing, the reason I picked MSK is because there's you're most likely going to be in a smaller team. So you get to be doing a lot more, and that's going to be good for your career and for your learning journey. So again, my team only has 3 people. One of them does something entirely different from what I do. And then the other person is my manager. So really all that development is between me and my manager, which is gathering requirements, building the entire pipeline, the architecture, building the UI, and then deploying it. All that has to happen between us. So you learn so much, and you get to interact with so much people, and you get to see your value. If you're at a bigger company, you don't necessarily see your value immediately because there's so much review in the process, and it's a lot slower. At a smaller company, even though MSK is not a small company, we're sort of structured like a startup. We're like a startup with better job security, I guess, and less bonuses. So you get to learn a lot more, and you get to really see the impact you make on people's lives. You can see exactly how many patients you've helped, or how many people's jobs are your job is required for hundreds of other people's jobs. If you don't do your job, hundreds of people aren't going to be able to do their job. So you get this huge source of gratification. It's like being a doctor, except you get to do it from home, and you kind of get to see so much gratification. It's honestly it's great. Yeah, I'd say that's the best part about my job.
Carlos?
So working from home, so yeah, being able to work in shorts, and sandals, unlimited PTO. What else? Yeah, you can basically fly anywhere. You just need a laptop and internet. Yeah, man, no complaints.
And Alyssa, to cap it off.
Yeah, wow. No pressure, right? I think my favorite part of my job, I do love being at home and working remotely, although I do go into the office with some frequency, which I also love. I love being with my coworkers and interacting with them as well. But I think my favorite part about my job specifically is that I still get to do research. I would call my job still kind of basic research and basic biological research there, even though it's being applied to these really interesting, therapeutic opportunities. So I think my favorite part about my job is that I get to still discover cool new things about biology using bioinformatics and using all of these tools that we've built. But I get to discover these things in the context of helping patients down the road. And I think that's just kind of insane that I can do that from the comfort of my own home, but still learn these super cool things about biology and work with my team to actually make those useful to a patient population. I think it's just very cool to do every day. So it's really exciting.
Want to thank all our panelists today, Alyssa, Amanor, and Carlos. Those were some wonderful insights, and I hope that everyone gained something from this today. And we look forward to hearing from you, whether that's applying to our application, and good luck on your journeys in computer science, data, and software engineering for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.